folks are very focused on only one environmental attribute and on a very short period of time. And the thing about the PPI study is that you guys looked at the full life cycle of different products, and you looked at them for a full range of environmental impacts, which is really the most robust you can do when it comes to performing a life cycle assessment. There are two different ISO standards that exist that tell you how to perform a life cycle assessment. And they're rigorous in terms of setting the goal and scope and making sure you're collecting data transparently. And when you're performing a comparative assertion, which you did, there are also additional hurdles that need to be crossed in terms of making sure there's a third-party peer review to ensure that really all of the different products in this comparative assertion are treated fairly. Your baseline was your 24-inch high-density polyethylene pipe, and then there was a HDPE pipe that had 50% recycled content. There was also then a PVC pipe, a reinforced concrete pipe, and aluminum coated steel pipe. So those were the 5 different types of pipes that were looked at for this 100-year service life.
With the life cycle assessment and the ISO guidance for LCAs, there are certain assumptions that have to be made. And with those assumptions, there's a range that can be provided.
Sure.
We made assumptions, as you mentioned, on the 100-year service life and applied that to every material. We made assumptions to go with end of life as leave in place as the disposal method because that was most even-handed without making presumptions of what might take place 100 years from now. Mm-hmm. Just a couple more, we made assumptions on that every material used their own data. As an industry, we didn't supply material for the competing industries. Mm-hmm. We used their own data, and we also used different criteria for installation for rigid versus flexible pipe. Mm-hmm. Would you care to comment on some of those assumptions and how those play out in a typical LCA?
Sure, yeah. It's always the case in a comparative assertion like this where you have competing products that are being evaluated, and the study was funded by PPI and the other products were not necessarily represented. And so ISO has very strict rules for comparative assertions that occur like that. And I mean, basically they say that you have to give the benefit of the doubt to the competing product. If they're not represented, that if you're choosing between a longer or a shorter service life, you have to give them the longer. If you're assuming that they have to travel farther distances or shorter distances, you have to give them the shorter distance. And so what that does is it makes sure that whoever's funding the study isn't able to somehow skew the results in their favor. And so I think that's what's even more remarkable about this study is the fact that even with all of those assumptions in place to favor the competing materials, the HDPE really did perform so well in this LCA.